Yeah, well, we find ourselves in a real tough spot here. I definitely feel like we're in desperate need of a win. We're going to have to do it on the road as we travel up to play a much improved Rhode Island team. I think Coach Trainer has those guys on the right track. They're sitting there with 2 wins, had a very impressive win at home against Central Connecticut State. I think it was 41-7. Then they won a road conference game up at Albany, I think 16-13, something like that. So they've played well at times here this year, well enough to win a couple of ball games. Last week up at New Hampshire, they got off to a good start, played with a lead early against a very good New Hampshire team. I think they were the first team to score first against New Hampshire all season long to this point. It was 14-12. Well into the second quarter, and then things kind of just started to go south for them, and New Hampshire took control of the game, scoring 38 unanswered points. So we're certainly expecting their best shot. I'm sure they understand our mindset here, our circumstances a little bit. Try to, get us while we're down. They've been on the road here a good bit, and I'm sure they're excited to be back in the confines of their home stadium. Our focus is very much on us and our readiness and our ability to play a more complete game to go up there and come home with a victory. At this time, I'll take any questions here from the media.
Hey, Coach, you've got nearly 2,000 passing yards and about 600 rushing yards. Is your goal to still try to balance it up, or you're happy with the direction this is moving?
Well, it's hard to be happy with the direction it's moving because we're not winning. If we were winning, then I'd be a lot easier to say, yeah, this is just the way we're going to have to play this year. I do think, and I do acknowledge right now, though, that our weaponry is certainly in the passing game in terms of our ability to, put up yards and move the football. So we'll, continue to be a little more pass-oriented. But I certainly am not interested in any way of abandoning our run game. Jacoby had some decent numbers the other night, and when you go back and watch the film, he actually had a pretty good night. We just were forced kind of out of that as the game started to skew against us a little bit. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Coach, and forgive me if this is an incorrect observation, but it seemed that against James Madison, you had some untimely penalties that either prolonged their momentum or stopped yours. Is that a concern? Has that been one of the factors in your 4 losses this year? It just seemed to me that some of it was a little undisciplined.
Yeah, well, we were not real disciplined up there at James Madison. That's probably the most frustrating thing from my perspective. The penalties, some of them were a function of being undisciplined, others were not. But you were very accurate in terms of the reality that it was a big factor in the game. It definitely hurt us on numerous occasions. Created opportunity and momentum for James Madison. And if we don't do better in that area and get that corrected, we're going to have a hard time winning close football games. Last year we were very disciplined in those areas and very successful in those areas. So a lot goes into it. Some of it is, focus. Some of it is, lineup changes. We've had a couple of lineup changes that have kind of created guys in new spots, different positions that they're not accustomed to playing. They find themselves in unusual positions during the game, and they do some things that are penalized. There's only so much you can do about that other than show them the film and try to correct it. But if we don't get that straightened out here, it'll be hard to turn this thing back around.
Coach, you mentioned the difficult start and the tough situation that you're in. Do you have to kind of approach everything now with a playoff mindset, with these last few games, these last 5 or 6 games? Do you have to think like playoffs, or are we not there yet?
Oh, no, I don't think that is even something that I would even think about communicating. I think, again, the reality is you have to be internally motivated to win each and every week. And I'm just convinced that if you're looking for external things to motivate you, be it how big's the crowd going to be, or how good is our opponent, or what's their ranking, or how's this position us in our conference, or how's this set up for postseason play, then throughout the course of the year, it's external things that affect how you perform. So, we just need a win in such a big manner right now that there's nothing other than beating Rhode Island that is of any significance to us. So, that's something that I will not even mention to anybody in my organization.
I think I might have phrased the question for your team, do they have to take it as if it's a playoff mindset for this last stretch here in order to kind of get you guys where you want to be this season?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think every game from here on in is equally important for us to be able to generate some momentum, build some confidence, and put together a strong season. So from that perspective, I would agree with that.
Coach, the comeback you had against JMU, does that help at all, motivating a team going into this game?
Yeah, it was certainly legitimate. It was very real in terms of the fight that our players put into the game and their ability to compete to the end, and certainly got back in it. I've made this comment a couple times here this week. The game this year was very much like last year's game, but in reverse. And in the third quarter a year ago, we took control of the game here. They kind of stormed back. They were penalized last year, somewhat undisciplined. This year, they took control of the game in the third quarter. We came storming back. We were penalized in the game and somewhat undisciplined. So, but, there's certainly things that you can build on from the performance. And then there are some guys that got a chance to do some things that to showcase their talents, Reggie Diggs being one of them. So he should have more confidence here heading into this week and into the rest of the season. So from that perspective, Shane Savage, a couple other guys did some things that we should be able to continue to build upon.
Are the Spiders prohibited from wearing pink during breast cancer awareness month?
Well, we had pink on Saturday night.
There's no NCAA rule regarding that?
Well, we checked with the CAA. And as long as towels, wristbands are of the correct size, you're allowed to do that. And our kids did do that Saturday night up in Harrisonburg.
While we're on the NCAA subject, can you say a word or two about the committee on which you serve? And what's the purpose?
Well, I'm sitting on an NCAA committee representing FCS football. In the area of rule changes, mostly in recruiting. The subcommittee is overseeing a number of different legislative options, and we have been meeting weekly in teleconference, attempting to present these to the leadership for further decision. I think that there are some items that are very, very significant in terms of how they can and will change the landscape of recruiting. Some deal with calendar items. Some are more specific to contact and evaluations. Some are dead periods. Some are dealing with some of the legislation that oversees official and unofficial visits. So there's been a lot of discussion in those areas. I've really enjoyed the experience, and we'll look forward to wrapping things up here and making some presentations at our AFCA coaches meetings in January. I'll have an opportunity along with Grant Taft to address the head coaches from FCS football to discuss these items and try to get some support and some consensus.
Volunteered?
I was asked to do it by Grant Taft, Coach Taft, and Gary Darnell, who is second in command of the AFCA down in Waco. Gary and I worked together at Wake Forest and at the University of Texas.